Today on the Dad the Best I Can show.
That's probably the definition of my relationship with my parents at this point, is me trying to do something dad-like and them just laughing at me like, oh, it's not so easy, is it? Oh, what, you're frustrated by your kids? Oh, look at that.
Hey now! Welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show. My name is Rob Roseman. Who wants to be a millionaire legend? Chicago futures trader, Vegas poker pro. Now I'm a dad to 3 kids, ages 6, 4, and 1. Phew! Wears me out just thinking about it. Each week we're bringing on dads like you to tell us your stories, your tips and tricks to help all of us make it through dad life. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's get on with the show. Today on the Dad the Best I Can show, we are joined by Matt Aptman. Matt is 41 years old. He lives in Boca Raton, Florida with his wife Jessica and 3 kids, ages 5, 9, and 13. Matt will tell us what it's like having a 13-year-old daughter in today's world, why Matt and I both think the jump from 2 kids to 3 is such a game changer, why we both think being a grandparent must be the best gig ever. Matt and I talk about how we would change the story to the movie Home Alone. There's so many good nuggets and impressions in here, we had to split the show into 2 parts. You guys are going to love it. 2 fun facts about Matt. He won the state championship in 10th grade for reciting Shakespeare's Henry IV and can still perform it. I don't know how fun that is, Matt. And he knows every word to the 1992 Snow song, Informer. Let's go. What's up, Matt? How you doing today?
Good morning, Rob. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's 11:30. We're recording this. What are you doing today? You got to work?
I'm doing work. I did some dad stuff this morning, actually. Took my kid on some errands, dropped him at school, and now I'm settling in, procrastinating doing work, and talking to you instead.
I'm glad I could help. What are you doing for lunch?
I'm not sure yet. You know, it's an important decision every day. I'm thinking poke bowl today.
Poke bowl? That sounds pretty healthy for you. Good job.
The problem with the poke bowl is every time I go, I go with the health intention, like, oh, I'll start off the, day, have something pretty healthy, and I start with like brown rice, but it's an assembly line, and the further I get down the assembly line, it gets unhealthy. So it starts with like, I'm gonna have brown rice, throw some raw salmon on that, and then by the end, I'm like, you have any ranch dressing or shredded cheese or French fries you can include? So it ends up not always working out the way I hope, but we'll give it a shot.
That's how they get you. Chipotle does the same thing. You start well, and then it's cheese, sour cream, guac, $3 extra. Just do it. Hit me.
And then can we wrap it up and deep fry that for you?
It's delicious, though. And you feel, it's better than McDonald's, right?
I mean, the worst poke bowl is still better than the best, healthiest meal at McDonald's. And you can't say supersize me at poke bowl. Although maybe you can. I'm going to try it today, see what they say to that.
All right, Matt, on the Dad the Best I Can show, we like to start out with some rapid-fire questions. Are you ready?
Fire away.
What is the first concert that you ever went to?
I'll tell you the first concert, but before I tell you the first concert, I'll tell you the opening act, which may even blow your mind more. Opening act, The Bangles. The concert headliner was George Michael. This was the I Want Your Sex tour in 1988, I believe, 88, 89. At the Orange Bowl. It was probably the most quintessentially 80s event of all time.
What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
It was one of the Hanna-Barbera ones. I'm going to go with Jabberjaw. Honorable mention to the Hair Bear Bunch.
Who's your favorite TV dad of all time?
Ooh, that's a good. There have been a lot. I'll avoid the obvious Danny Tanners. Oh, the dad from Family Ties was good. George Papadopoulos on Webster was good. But I if I have to choose one, I think it's Henry from Punky Brewster.
Henry.
For the simple reason that at least 40 times an episode, he would just look at her and go, "Oh, Punky."
Oh my God, I think that's the first Punky Brewster dad impression ever done.
Punky. Oh, Robbie.
That's excellent. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
Unequivocally, Big Lebowski. One. Hard stop. Nothing else in contention.
What's the most underrated movie of all time?
Now that's tougher. That's a good question. I think it's True Romance. Have you seen that movie?
Such a classic. I don't know if it's Tarantino directing or writing, but the cast is just phenomenal too. So good.
Yeah, I think he wrote it, but I will take the Pepsi challenge against anyone that is the greatest cast of any movie ever made.
Yeah, you forget all these random people in there. Gandolfini's in there, Brad Pitt's in
Yep.
there, Balky from Perfect Strangers. Remember him?
Balky Bartakamus, who says Kosalari Appleton. Yeah, he's in it. You've got Gary Oldman in it, Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, the Dennis Hopper, Christopher Walken scene. And these are not even the stars, right? The main characters, Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. The Dennis Hopper, Christopher Walken scene may be one of the best scenes of any movie I've ever seen.
I wish you could recite it, but it's probably a little off color for you, right?
I would, but yes, it's off color, and I've been told the internet is permanent, so I will not recite it.
Nobody will hear this. You'll be okay.
Although I think it's late, and I think the chances at this point in my life that I run for political office are slim to none. Although, anyone can do it, it seems.
It might help your case even.
That's right. The more offensive and racist you are on record, it might make you more electable.
Who's the most famous person you ever met?
It's a jump ball between, no pun intended, between Michael Jordan and President George W. Bush. If it was actually a jump ball, I would say it was Jordan, but I think W is more famous.
Okay, great answers, Matt. You did well, as expected. Let's talk a little bit about your life as a dad. You have 3 kids. How old are they?
They are 5, 9, and very recently 13, which is a special age.
Wow. So you learn a lot of. All you have to do is tell me how many kids you have and how old they are, and I know so much about you. And as it turns out, I now have a lot more respect for you.
And the extra piece, the only other data point is, are they girls or boys? If you know how many kids someone has, how old they are, and what the gender of those children are, you can immediately sort of understand their life
Right.
or commiserate with them.
So 3 kids versus 2. Nobody told me this until it was too late. It's a big change, right?
I think for me, going from 2 to 3 kids was a bigger change than 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. It's a game changer. I guess cliches are cliches because they're true, but the whole, well, you're going from man to zone, like that's what everyone says when you're having 3 kids, and it's hokey, but it's true. Your whole strategy on defense changes.
Yeah, we don't have a defense. And I hear that analogy a lot, and I don't like it because if this was basketball, I would crush my kids in basketball. I'm coaching basketball right now. They're terrible at this age. Somehow 3-on-1 when it's 3 kids versus dad, it's like you're playing the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals and you're just going to get crushed. Let's take a quick break to talk about our dad tip of the week for you, brought to you by Kickstart Reading. At Kickstart Reading, you can watch 2-minute videos that teach your kid how to read. This is how I taught my 5-year-old going into kindergarten how to read, and now my 4-year-old in pre-K is learning to read with these videos now too. Best part? 2 minutes. What dad doesn't have time for 2 minutes? Come on, guys. Go to kickstartreading.com and use the code DADTHEBEST to get your first month free. That's kickstartreading.com. Any more tips that you have for me dealing with 3 versus 2, especially when they're really young?
I try not to give tips, but I listen to other people's tips and I just pass them forward. So one tip a buddy of mine with 3 kids gave me is he turns the door handles on their rooms around so they can't lock you out, but you can lock them in, which sounds kind of mean. It's one of those things you don't understand until you're a parent. Like if you're not a parent, you're like, that's mean. You can't do that. But his point was no kid has ever cried themselves to death. Meaning you put them in their room and I'm like, yeah, but what if they cry? He's like, then they cry. They'll stop eventually. No one's died of crying.
That's true. It feels like it sometimes. It's painful, but they'll be all right.
Turning the door handle around thing. I mean, there are things that you think about before you're a parent and you're like, I would never do that to my kid. And then you're a parent and you're like, I totally get. Like, did you ever see the Louis C.K. skit where he's talking about the kid who's crying at McDonald's and the mother screaming at him.
I'm not sure if I remember that one, but I know Louis is my favorite dad comic around, so let's hear it.
So he says, oh, before I was a dad, I walked into McDonald's and I see this woman and she's just screaming at her kid and she's berating him. And I'm thinking, God, what a horrible human being screams at a child like that. He's like, but then a few years later, I see the same thing and I'm thinking, what did that little heathen do to his mother to get her so angry? Your perspective changes.
So true. There's so much. It's different now. You have so much more empathy for parents. Like on an airplane, if you see the kids crying, that used to annoy me pre-kids, but now I just look at the parents. And first, I'm glad it's not me, which usually it is. But second, you do feel for them.
I heard a kid screaming so loud on a plane that, the stewardess walked by and under her breath said to the other stewardess, she said, "Do you think we can ask them to take the kid outside?" And this was at 30,000 feet. It's kind of funny.
That's well played, stewardess.
Yeah. Well played, flight attendant.
So yeah, we kind of stumble into this dad life. Did you have an oh shit moment? I'm a dad now.
I've had multiple, but the first one was the day my wife and I were taking our oldest child, our first, home from the hospital, and I pulled up our brand new SUV. We had the car seat strapped in properly, double and triple checked, and the nurse had my wife in a wheelchair, which was unnecessary, but my wife gets up, gets in the car. The nurse puts the baby in the car seat, buckles the baby in, and just says, "Okay, great, well, good luck to you," and closes the door. And my wife and I look at each other. We're like, that's it? They just give us a human being now? I'm not sure that's such a good idea. Yeah, that was the first, like, oh shit, I guess I'm responsible for another human being's life now.
What did you do after you got him in the car, or you got her in the car? What did you do?
We did the type of thing you do when you've just become a first parent and you know no better. So we went through a drive-through because we were hungry. And then we drove to our friend's house that didn't have kids, and we just pulled up and honked and rolled down the window and we're like, "Hey, look what we made. We got a baby." And they looked at the baby, and then we were like, "I guess we'll go home now and start our lives as a family."
It's funny. You think you're ready, but that moment when they hand it off to you and you have to pull away, it's kind of crazy that they even allow parents to do that.
If you want to drive a car, you've got to take a written test, which you have to study for, pass that, and then you get a license where that only gives you the right to be around a more experienced driver for a year, and then you come back and you have to pass a test by yourself. But literally anyone who wants to have a kid can just have a kid. Here you go. Here's your human. Maybe we'll write our congressman about that plan.
I guess that's the bond we all have, though, as parents, is that none of us have any fucking clue about what we're doing when we start, and we still really don't, but we're all just winging it, and I guess we have that camaraderie that everyone's going through that.
And do you ever stop to think, like, wait, my parents were as ill-equipped to raise me as I am to raise another child when I'm a first-time parent?
That is so fascinating. I always think about, and then you do the age, and I started a little later having kids. I mean, my parents were like 24 years old. Like, I can think about what I was doing at that age. There was no way I could have handled having a kid then. So, and I think, do you get this when the grandparents come to visit? A lot of the time is just spent with them, like quietly laughing and smirking and saying, "See, it's not as easy as you thought, huh?"
That's probably the definition of my relationship with my parents at this point, is me trying to do something dad-like and them just laughing at me like, "Oh, it's not so easy, is it? Oh, what, you're frustrated by your kids? Oh, look at that." I think that's the real benefit of being a grandparent, is you get to kind of laugh at your kids as they appreciate how hard it was.
It sounds amazing. I can't wait. I think grandparent is secretly the best gig ever. You can like give them candy, let them play video games all night, hand them back off, and you're done. And you get to like watch your kids struggle with it.
Oh, it's the handoff that's the great thing, right? Because you don't have, as soon as things go south, you're just like, "Okay, we're gonna go, home and have dinner," and then your kids are like, "But it's 3 p.m." and you're like, "Well, yeah, but that's what grandparents do. We have dinner at 3 and we go to bed at 5."
What's one thing that you've learned from your dad?
I've learned a lot from my dad, especially now that I'm a dad. Things he said, which didn't make sense to me then, make sense now. But my dad always said, or not always. My dad often said, "This is not a democracy." You know, he's in charge, or they're in charge. They set the rules. We abide by it. And while your opinions are welcome, they're not equally weighted votes. He had the free dad get out of jail free card, which is, anytime you ask something that was preposterous, he'd be like, "Well, when you're 18, you're out of the house. You can do that. That's your decision." I'd be like, "Well, I'm gonna," when you're a kid and you hear that, you're like, "I'm gonna have a donkey, and I'm gonna eat pancakes all day, every day, and just play video games because you can't stop me because I'm an adult and it's my house."
We've been watching Home Alone a lot lately, and I start to ask my kids, what would you do if you were Kevin and you were stuck at home? What would you do? Like, would you play video games? Would you eat? And they get all excited thinking about it.
It's a good time of year to watch Home Alone too, because it's the whole holiday thing. Although, and someone mentioned this to me, did you ever wonder what Kevin's dad did? I mean, he's got this house that's like 12 bedrooms, and every Christmas he takes 20 family members to Paris. And I mean, the planning that has to go into a trip where you're taking 20 people to Paris, and this is in the 80s, pre like orbits and kayak, is immaculate. But somehow he neglects to remember to bring one of his children.
What a horrible trip. I mean, can you imagine a worse trip than taking like all your young kids and 20 family members to Paris for a month?
Surprised that Kevin's dad didn't, he wasn't the one home alone. Like he plans the whole trip, sends all them, and then accidentally gets stuck at home, fending off the wet bandits.
Now you're talking. This sounds like our remake, Home Alone 4. Dad just stays at home by mistake, and it's the best time ever in this quiet house.
But by mistake is in quotes. That's the movie poster. This time, Kevin's dad is home by mistake.
How old are you?
I am almost 42 years old.
Are you starting to feel old or what?
It depends on the moment, but today I don't feel that old. At every point in time, I feel one of three ages. I never feel my age. I always feel either 8 years old, 22 years old, or 80. Today I kind of feel 22, which is good. Yeah, by the end of the day, I'll probably feel 80. Maybe it's that I always feel 8 in the morning, 22 in the middle of the day, and 80 by the end of the day.
I wouldn't say I'm feeling old, but I have started to implement some new strategies, and I pretty much copy whatever Joe Rogan says I should do. So he's been pitching the hot yoga and the hot sauna and the cold showers. Apparently, to stay young, you have to just change the temperature.
The sauna is an old man thing, though.
It's amazing, the sauna. I just started it. First of all, what temperature do you think a sauna is supposed to be at?
What's hotter, the sauna or the steam room? I always forget.
I'm not sure, but without Googling it.
I'm going to guess the sauna is 112 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's about what I thought, because you think kind of like a hot tub. The sauna I walked into today, I look at the thermometer, 180 degrees.
Holy, that's like the temperature on Mars in Total Recall before the glass breaks. That's brutal.
Oh, another great movie. Yeah. So I asked the guy, was this normal? He's like, yeah, he cranks it up to 200 sometimes, which I almost passed out when he did that. But yeah, you stay in there 10 minutes, you sweat, you meet some interesting people in there. Today I met he's like a 75-year-old guy. He starts talking to me because they love chatting you up when you walk in there. He does this 5-minute sauna right before he goes to his silver sneakers class, which is the senior workout class. And
I'm familiar. I live in Florida. The gyms are basically just roving hordes of silver sneaker people.
So he's telling me how hot the teacher is. So it's good. I asked him how old she was. She's like 55 years old. So good to hear we're all creepy as we get older too.
Maybe the old guys loving the sauna is the reason that so many old people are in Florida, because it's effectively a sauna down here. Have you noticed that? I mean, there are certain things like saunas that I think as you get older, you do more of. Have you noticed the nudity factor in the men's locker room at the gym just increases with age? Yeah, and if you're like an early teen, like 15, you're kind of self-conscious. You got the towel wrap. When you're in your 20s, you just out of respect for other people, you keep it covered. Now 40s, you don't flaunt it, but whatever, you stop caring. And by like 70 years old. These guys are just walking around naked, like, oh, I've got a bug bite on my inner thigh. Let me lift my leg above my head and put it on the counter naked. And their balls are like dragging on the ground. You might have to cut that part out.
I can't wait. There's going to be a new podcast in the sauna with 70-year-olds. It's going to be a good time. You can come record with me.
It'll be called Granddad the Best I Can.
Sauna style. Thank you guys for listening to the Dad the Best I Can show. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Actually, 5 stars. We could do better than that. Brooks? Infinity stars. Cameron? How many stars?
Infinity 1,000.
Infinity 1,000. You gotta one-up them in this household. Thanks. See ya.